everyone. Wait, I feel like that wave was weird. Hold on. Hello, everyone. My name's Victoria, and you might know me as the creator of Pouch Magazine. All right, let me see. Get in the camera. Hello. Pouch Magazine. So again, you might already know me on Instagram. I'm pouch.studio on Instagram, or I'm on Substack, VRK Loves Paper. So if you're watching this video, this is my first video. I'm assuming that you are watching from those channels, but if you just found me through the YouTube algorithm, hello, hi, I'm Victoria. And yeah, I have an indie magazine called Pouch. It's a magazine for paper or for stationery lovers. Man, I need to get my own magazine right. It is also for paper lovers, but specifically for stationery lovers. And so yeah, it's like this A5 zine full of stationery reviews, recommendations, inspiration, things like that. I wanted to do a little Q&A video about Pouch and a little bit about myself too. Pouch issue 2 came out last month in April 2025, and the reception has been really amazing. So many people have been buying the issue, sharing on Instagram, sharing with their friends, and thank you so much to everyone who has been supporting Pouch and supporting me with my little magazine. It really makes such a huge difference. And so, yeah, I've been getting a lot of interest in Pouch, and I've been getting a lot of questions too. So I wanted to do this Q&A video, especially for brand new Pouch fans. If you haven't been following me from the early days, then I wanted to use this video as a chance to kind of like reintroduce myself a bit, explain some questions that I commonly get about Pouch or about my work, and yeah, just kind of explain who I am and what I'm trying to do in a little more detail than I can do on Instagram or even Substack. And I recently posted an Instagram story asking for your questions, so I tried to answer as many as I could from there. And then I also included just some common questions I've gotten in person, over DMs, and things like that. Okay, that's the intro. Let's get into it. Okay, so the very first question is, what inspired you to make Pouch Magazine? Okay, so this is probably really obvious, but my very first inspiration is just that I love paper. I love paper as a format. I love it as a medium. I love it as a technology. I just literally find paper really, really interesting. So I love paper in all sorts of different ways. One format of paper that I specifically like is stationery. And tying in with all that is I have a love of storytelling. Like one of the things that I love about journaling is it's kind of telling the story of your life and doing so in a very personal way. So I love storytelling in the format of journaling. But beyond journaling, I also love storytelling in the form of writing. I also like visual storytelling, stories through words and pictures, comics, and of course, I love magazines and I love zines. So in some ways, just that passion for stationery and paper and storytelling and magazines, that's certainly a large part of my inspiration for why I created Pouch. However, I also want to mention two very specific inspirations that I have for the magazine. So, as many of us know, Japan loves paper. Japan's been loving paper, and they actually have a book format that is not very popular outside of Japan. Or at least I don't know of any popularity with this other than in Japan. This format is called a MOOC. So MOOK, it's a portmanteau or like a mashup of two words, magazine and book. And I'll just read you the definition from Wikipedia. A MOOC is a publication which is physically similar to a magazine, but is intended to remain on bookstore shelves for longer periods than a traditional magazine. So even from that definition alone, you're probably hearing some similarities with Pouch, right? And then within MOOCs, there are a lot of stationary MOOCs. I live in New York City. I used to live in Seattle. And in both of these cities, there is a large Japanese bookstore called Kinokuniya. And Kinokuniya sells MOOCs and they sell stationary MOOCs. So I think the very first stationary MOOC I got was over 10 years ago from the artist Mizutama. If you don't know Mizutama, I'll put her account up on the screen. She is an artist who designs such cute graphics and drawings and stationery, and she has a series of MOOCs that teach you how to doodle like her and give you ideas and inspiration for decorating things like coasters or journals, whatnot. Anyhow, so Mizutama's MOOCs were my first introduction to MOOCs. I found them at Kinokuniya. And then from there, I found the entire universe of MOOCs. So let me just show you visually. Here's like my pile of MOOCs I've gotten from Kinokuniya or Amazon Japan. And actually, so it's a little sad. I live in a New York City apartment, and so I actually have to purge my MOOC collection pretty frequently because I can't just hoard every single stationery magazine that I come across for the last 10 years. I don't have the storage for that. I actually checked my closets before recording this video. Like, I don't think I have my original Mizutama MOOCs, but I have my relatively more recent MOOCs. So here's just like a random example. Look at this, so beautiful. And if you look through, you can see like these MOOCs will have examples of like journal layouts to try, systems to try, and even just like flipping through, you can see visually see where the overlap with pouches. Like, look at this, isn't this beautiful? Like all these like fun ideas for your journal. Oh my gosh, this is another favorite one of mine. Like, look at all these cool journal layouts and like these fun tutorials that show you, inspiration ideas for your journal. But for the longest time, I've wanted, of course, an English version of these MOOCs. This is a me problem. A me problem, not a problem with the MOOCs, is that I can't speak Japanese. And so I love these beautiful, like this is another one, letters, beautiful Japanese magazines on stationery. I love them so much, but my problem is that I don't know Japanese, and so I can't read them well. I will usually like try to kind of read them anyway using Google Translate, but it's different, right? Like it's still like more comfortable if the magazine itself was either translated or originally written in English. That would be much easier for me to read. So for years, I loved reading stationery MOOCs, and for years, I wished that there was a stationery magazine in English. And so in July 2023, I had quit my job. I was actually working in tech as a software engineer, so I quit my job to take a creative sabbatical. And during that sabbatical, I decided, you know what? Let's create the stationery magazine. Let's just do it. I ended up creating Pouch issue 1 then. So stationery MOOCs are my number one inspiration for Pouch. Another shout out I have to give is to this magazine. This is Patch Magazine, an indie magazine for indie video games. Okay, so even the name Pouch and Patch, very similar, right? That is actually a total coincidence. Like, great minds think alike. But yeah, I learned about Patch actually after I'd come up with the name Pouch. So that part is just a lucky coincidence that we have that like sisterhood together of similar names. But what is not a coincidence is the paper format and size of Patch and Pouch are about the same. They're both A5, right? So this is Pouch. They are just about identical size. And the size of Patch is a direct inspiration for the size of Pouch. Like, I learned about Patch, I think in August 2023, when I was really just in the beginning of trying to get Pouch issue 1 together. And I just love A5 for a magazine. Like, it just feels really good to hold in your hand. Like, I feel like I have other magazines, other magazines I really love. This Napple. This is another Japanese magazine. It's not stationary. It's a cat travel magazine. I love Neapple. I've talked about this on my Substack of like I get a lot of visual inspiration from Neapple, and actually I do like the size of Neapple as well, but it's a little, it's a little clunkier, a little heavier in your hands. Versus I kind of fell in love with like the A5 size for a magazine. Yeah, I love Patch. Yeah, Patch is also like beautifully designed, beautifully illustrated, really colorful. I love that they have very few ads. So like the size of Patch and the like personality of Patch is absolutely another direct inspiration for Pouch. Patch is UK based, and side note is definitely makes more sense to have an A5 magazine in the UK. In the US, trying to print at A5 size, your options for printers are very limited, but I did find one. So I use Mixam for what it's worth. They print in A5. They're also originally UK based, so it makes sense. Anyhow, I love Patch. I love A5. And yeah, please definitely go support Patch, buy Patch Magazine if you're at all interested in either indie magazines or indie video games in particular. And also, if you have access to them, definitely pick up some MOOCs. You can buy them at Kinokuniya, or you can buy them on Amazon Japan. Even in the US, you can buy MOOCs from Amazon Japan. Okay, so the next question is, when is Pouch issue 3 coming out? Okay, so I don't want to bury the lead. I will just tell you what the status of issue 3 is right now. I think most realistically, issue 3 is going to come out in spring 2026, so spring of next year. I am going to try to see if there's any possible way for me to produce Pouch issue 3 this year, but at least by my estimates, like looking at timelines, looking at all the other work I need to do outside of Pouch, I just don't think it's realistic to try to release more than one issue a year for Pouch right now. So I know that actually might sound or might be really disappointing news for Pouch fans who were hoping to get 2 issues of Pouch a year. I was hoping I would be able to produce 2 issues of Pouch a year. And I know this might be even more disappointing to people who wanted Pouch to come out quarterly or even more frequently. But yeah, so I wanted to sort of explain the timeline and like why I can't go faster than probably 1 issue a year for now. First, before I get into all the details, I wanted to talk about like the situation in which Pouch was created, which is a weird phrase, but what I mean by that is to say like I did not create Pouch with the intention of starting a magazine business. I actually created Pouch purely as a passion project on my sabbatical from my tech career. In July 2023, I quit my tech job and started a creative sabbatical. I truly had no plan for my sabbatical other than center your creative self, give yourself freedom to create whatever you want, and actually don't try to create a business out of it or try to monetize it. That's not what we're doing here. We're not thinking about how do you create something that's practical or something that could generate revenue to sustain your lifestyle? None of that. It's just with no other pressure, what do you want to create? That was my prompt for myself. And so I can show you this little snippet of a document I had written in August 2023. So that's about 1 month into my sabbatical. I'd done a bunch of journaling. I'd given myself some time to just tinker around with things. And I was really just asking myself like, okay, what in your heart of hearts do you want to create if feasibility or can you do it? If those sorts of questions are not on the table, it's just like purely what do you want to build? And here's what I had to say. Like, I said, in general, in my spirit, I'd like to be able to, 1, make an indie magazine for paper lovers. Work in progress title, Pouch. 2, make a spiritual successor to the print shop. In other words, what I mean is make software for paper lovers. Okay, so I made Pouch just because I wanted to, just because in my creative heart of hearts, I just wanted to make this thing. And then actually, like, with Pouch issue 2 especially, to my great surprise, a lot of people really like the magazine and would love to see it continue. And I'm starting to see that maybe there's value in Pouch beyond just a personal project that's very fulfilling to me, that this is actually something that the stationery community really wants or even needs. But again, that wasn't my intention with Pouch. So one of the things that I did in the last couple of weeks is I did a lot of soul searching and a lot of planning. Like, I wanted to do some soul searching to figure out, like, hey, do I actually want Pouch magazine to turn into a business, basically? Like, do I want it to serve more than a function of just a personal project for myself? And at the end of the day, I sort of landed on this. I want to get Pouch magazine in a place where I can sustainably create it indefinitely, or for as long as I feel the project makes sense. But I don't necessarily want to make Pouch magazine a full-time business. Like, I don't want to put that sort of pressure on Pouch. I don't want to have to produce issues of the magazine thinking like, oh man, I really hope I make enough sales from this issue to provide me a living wage. Like, there's a lot of reasons why I don't want to do that. So I feel really good about that decision. One of the consequences of that decision is I cannot work full-time on Pouch. And the reason why is because, like, well, okay, so if Pouch magazine is not going to be making me money, I have to make money some other way. I unfortunately am not in a situation where I can just be on sabbatical forever, never having to make money again. So I'm trying to experiment with, like, how I might make this all work. And here's what I've come up with. So Pouch issue 2 took me roughly 3 full-time months for me to complete. And that's not including, honestly, 3 additional months before that doing part-time work on the magazine. So in my perspective, I'm like, okay, those 3 months out of the year are just kind of a wash. Think of them as like 3 months of unpaid summer break. And then the remaining 9 months of the year, I need to be able to make enough money to sort of subsidize the amount of time and effort it takes to create Pouch in those 3 months. And I know that might sound kind of funky, but it's actually my understanding that that's sort of how most indie magazines operate anyway. So I have a book that's called Just Make Your Magazine. It's a field guide to publishing an indie magazine. Looks like this. And there's a quote in this book from, I don't know how to say her last name, but looks like Anya, Charbonneau. Anyway, publisher of many magazines. And she says that, over time, I've learned that it's nearly impossible to run one magazine and have a financially sustainable business. There always needs to be another revenue stream, whether that's client work, publishing other titles, merchandise, or a mix of projects. The sooner you can find the right way to diversify your offerings, the longer your magazine can survive and thrive. I'm actually chatting with Anya in a few weeks to get her advice on Pouch. I'll also figure out how to say her last name. But yeah, basically from this quote, it sort of sounds like this is the reality most indie magazines face anyway, of like, they also cannot just produce one magazine and have a financially sustainable business. They need to find other ways to make money. So I think just realistically, if I want Pouch magazine to survive, that means that right now I have to kind of like take my Pouch magazine hat off, set it there aside, and actually work on developing a second revenue stream. And that second revenue stream that I want to try, at least for now, is software. So why software? There is a short version and a long version. I actually want to get into both, but first just the short version, which is like I said, my background is not actually in design or magazine or publishing. My background is in software engineering. So the easiest path for me personally as a professional software engineer, if I was to try to come up with a business, it would be a software business because that is where all my expertise lies. And then beyond just expertise and background, I'm actually passionate about building software. So again, if you look at my document from August 2023, I showed you I had two parts of this dream. One is Pouch Magazine, and the other one is this spiritual successor to the print shop, this like idea of making software that helps people make things with paper. That is something I want to do even if I couldn't monetize it, like even if it was just a passion project. But of the two dreams of mine that I have that I would feel comfortable monetizing, I would rather keep Pouch Magazine in its own little garden, like passion project, no pressure to make money. And I'd rather try to make money off of a fun, cute software product instead. Okay, so I kind of want to break out of the Q&A format just for a little bit right now and just talk to you about software for a bit. So sometimes I meet people, either fans of Pouch or actually more often it's people in my art classes who are surprised or even a bit disappointed to learn that I am a software engineer. And honestly, I get it. I am very skeptical of the average person working in tech these days. Even though this isn't really a Q&A question, I just want to take a moment to talk to you about where I stand with software, what I'm trying to do with it, and why. So first, I want to describe a journey that a lot of people assume is my journey, and a journey that is beautiful and brave, but is actually not my journey. Like, you hear of a person who grows up and really loves the arts and humanities and writing. And then for one reason or another, they are pushed out of it. Like maybe they don't think they're good enough, or maybe they're financially pressured and forced to pursue a practical career instead of pursuing their passion. And so they make that trade-off and they end up working a career that really doesn't fulfill or suit them. And then later, when they have the opportunity, they quit their like safe career and instead pursue their dreams. I love hearing stories like this, and I feel so much inspiration from them, but that's actually not my journey here. So my journey is not 100% different than this. I also grew up really loving the humanities. I actually really loved piano, and I don't have any good pictures of this, but I also really loved drawing, and I especially loved writing. But the biggest difference here is I also loved computers. When I was a teenager, figuring out what career path I was going to choose, studying computer science was not some big compromise. It was more like a coin flip. My top two majors were either English major or computer science major. And again, it's kind of a funny story, but I actually loved English so much that I had like a toxic relationship with English. Like I would obsess over essays. I would just hold myself to impossible standards when it came to writing, things like that. And so on the other hand, computers were just fun for me. I just had a lot of fun building things on my computer. And so that is the reason why I pursued computer science, is because I actually respected English way more as like a major and a passion, as like a field of study. But I actually didn't think that would be good for my mental health to pursue English as a major. And instead I chose computer science more for fun than for any other external pressure or anything like that. I've been obsessed with computers since I was about 5 years old, and I'm 37 now. So if you do the math, I was into computers before the internet, before YouTube, before Instagram, like before the iPhone. So then something I want to distinguish is my love of software versus my feelings toward the tech industry, the software industry, or Silicon Valley. And in short, I love software, I love computers, I love technology, and I hate Silicon Valley, I hate the tech industry. You may hear people who are really passionate about video games, they love video games, they love playing and making video games, but they're highly critical or they even hate the video game industry. Similar sentiment is like, you find people who are really passionate about film, the art of film, but they're really annoyed or even hate Hollywood. And in fact, in some ways, like if you're a huge fan of film, you might even hate Hollywood even more than the average person who is not a fan of film, because you see how Hollywood interprets what film is and you get so enraged. That might be even more offensive to you as a film nerd, because you see this industry that is twisting and distorting this thing that you love into this abomination that you hate. That is exactly how I feel about the tech industry, is like, as a nerd, as someone who loves computers, as someone who's loved computers and software and technology since I was a child, I really hate what the tech industry has turned into. I actually feel so passionate about this that the first time I tried to record this video, at this point of the video, I went on a hour-long plus rant about how I hate the tech industry. I wish I was joking. This is take two. Like, I'm going to try to contain my feelings here as much as possible, and I'm going to keep it short and simple. To me, software engineering is a wonderful outlet for the side of myself that loves problem solving, the inventor side of myself. I get the same sort of excitement with software engineering that I get with stationary tools, with analog tools. Like, when you find a pen or a stationary item that solves a problem just so, in just a particular perfect way, like that excitement and joy and awe that you get when you see those tools, that's how I feel about the digital equivalent. And to me, the idea of being able to create tools to help people express themselves is really exciting to me, really interesting and fun problems to work on. Meanwhile, the tech industry is run by billionaire supervillains with god complexes who simply use technology to gain wealth, power, and control. And whether or not that technology helps people is secondary. Like, it's more important that people are using it. Like, software and technology is a means to an end for these supervillains to amass absurd amounts of power and wealth. And they're really just exploiting this thing that I love. So yeah, software, I love. Tech industry, not a fan. And I truly have to leave it at that, or I will derail this entire video. Okay, and then I also need to talk about AI, because I think it's only fair to my audience, especially my audience that includes artists, a community that's currently being targeted by the software industry right now. And in short, my feelings are complex, but my policy is not. My policy on generative AI is I don't use it at all. So when I say I don't use it at all, I mean I don't even use ChatGPT. And I certainly am not using AI for any generative art, but I'm not even using like ChatGPT or coding, AI-assisted coding tools. Like, I'm avoiding AI as basically as much as I humanly can. And again, I want to distinguish two things here. There is the technology that is powering generative AI, and then there are the companies controlling and distributing it. So in a vacuum, if we are just talking about the technology behind generative AI, I think it's really cool. Like, I think it's really powerful and potentially very transformative. I don't hear this explained too much, so I want to take a little bit of time to explain it. So basically, with things like LLMs, large language models, there have recently been advances in something called natural language processing. And thanks to that, there are a huge number of problems that used to be way too hard for computers to solve that now, suddenly, with these advances in natural language processing, we have the potential to solve them for the first time. That means there is potential for huge innovations in virtually all areas of technology, and generally speaking, that's why a lot of like innocent, pure-hearted computer nerds are excited about generative AI these days. But also, so this technology that I just described is the exact type of technology that I do not want in the hands of billionaire supervillains with god complexes. This type of technology and the current leaders of the tech industry, this is a match made in hell. But unfortunately, that is where we are. We've got this genuinely super powerful, potentially transformative technology in the hands of the last people I would want running or controlling or having any influence over this technology. And so that's why I'm personally not using this stuff at all. I worked in the tech industry for over 13 years. I know exactly who these people are and I don't trust them at all. And I don't want to support them. So, and when I'm saying them, I'm talking about companies like OpenAI. You know, if you're not following a lot of the AI stuff, they are the ones behind things like the Ghibli AI stuff. But even beyond that, they've done countless shady, unethical things, and I refuse to support that company. So I'm not using things like ChatGPT, not because I don't think it's powerful. I actually do think it is, but I'm personally on a personal boycott against basically all of these companies as much as I feasibly can because I'm ethically opposed to them. Okay, and I have to leave it at there again so I don't launch into another 1 hour long rant. And then last point I want to just call out is like, I'm against generative AI in art, writing, and creative work, full stop. So I did say just now that like, there are a lot of potentially interesting and powerful use cases for generative AI. But even if this technology was not currently helmed by people I find completely unethical, I'm still against AI in these scenarios. So for this topic, I've actually written at length about this. So I'm not going to get into my reasons for this here. I have an essay on Substack. I'll link that below if you want to check it out. Okay, so given everything I just said, I think it's pretty obvious I have a lot of huge criticisms with the tech industry right now. I hate the AI wave that is taking over every part of our technology and so many aspects of our lives. So this is actually why I think it is critically important that we have independent software engineers like myself who are committed to building technology that doesn't have any generative AI in it at all. We need technologists who reject the idea that AI is the future, that AI must be in the center of all of our human experiences. We need people with that mindset, people like myself, creating technology and creating software. We cannot just yield to the supervillains and let them go unchecked to build out their vision of the world. And the reason why I feel that is like, technology is a very powerful tool. We can't just opt out of it. Like, even if I wanted to just focus on Pouch magazine itself could not be made without a computer. I couldn't have reached the audience that I did without the internet, and I am even currently talking to you through a YouTube video. And so today, as the tech industry is causing sweeping destructive harm to artists and writers and creatives and to that entire industry, I think it's essential that we start creating our own independent tools outside of this system, outside of an industry that clearly does not care about us at all, so that we can still take advantage of the power of technology without being at the mercy of Silicon Valley's fiscal interests. And that is actually what I'm trying to do with Pouch Studio, and that is why I'm trying to make software my secondary revenue stream to Pouch magazine. I'm doing this as a 100% self-funded independent creator. I have 0 investors, 0 shareholders, meaning I have complete freedom to create my business however I see fit. This is actually exceedingly rare in software, which is why you see virtually every software product right now forcing AI into their product. Some people are doing it because they actually believe in it, but a lot of people are doing it literally just because they're investors or they're shareholders, or they just have some other market competitive fear that they need to do it to stay competitive or whatever. But I'm independent. I do not think I need AI in any way to be competitive, and I don't want to use it because I'm ethically opposed to so many aspects of it. In addition to, I'm just not interested in the applications of generative AI in the areas I care about the most. So yeah, so that said, working by yourself and working self-funded and independent does have its drawbacks. Namely, it means I'm going to have to be moving very slow. Big picture, I will move a lot slower than software company that's got millions of dollars in funding. And I'm also going to have to start way smaller than any of these traditional tech companies with millions of dollars in funding. In terms of the software that I want to build, I want to start with software in this area of passion of mine, which is journaling and print. One of my other beefs with the tech industry is that the tech industry just declared that print is dead. It's declared that for years. And one of the side effects of the fact that the tech industry just thinks print is boring is that there's no longer a lot of software that helps you with print. Again, I'm 37, and so when I was younger, pre-internet, there was actually a lot of fun and interesting software that helped you make things with print. And that is actually, again, this is a long story, I won't get into it, but it's that type of software was actually the software that even got me into computers at all. It was things that let you make things like calendars and greeting cards, newsletters, and even, booklets, like the precursor to zine creation for me. You can make all that easily on your computer, printed out on your home printer. This sort of software has been, by and large, abandoned by the tech industry, and I would love to bring it back. I would love to build sort of a modern interpretation of these sorts of tools. And I'd love to start with journaling and the journaling use case of I know so many people who like to print photos or want to be able to print photos for their journal or do other tasks with their journal. So that's kind of where I want to start. Some people might know that I, made a little software tool last December called Journal Helper that gives you sort of a sense of the type of software I want to build. Software that lets you update and maintain your analog journal more easily. So yeah, that is what I'm planning to work on next. I know this initial software might look really humble, but I'm hopeful that if I can keep at it, that these baby steps can eventually lead to me being able to develop powerful, independent technology that is made for people who see the value of print, who see the value of human stories and human experiences and human artwork, technology for us, by us. Okay, so that's all I want to say on the software part. Now let's get back to the Q&A. Okay, hello. It is day 2 of recording this video. New day, same sweater. Recording videos, very hard, you guys. I'm going to try to go a little faster through the rest of the questions so I can actually finish. All right, so let's go. Okay, so the next question is, how can I contribute to Pouch? How do I submit something to Pouch magazine? Yes! Okay, oh my gosh. So whenever I get this question, I get super fired up. Community contributions are my favorite part of Pouch magazine, and getting a bunch of contributions from people that I haven't even met before is a dream come true for me. So I'm so excited that people are excited to submit to Pouch, and I cannot wait to see your amazing submissions. But like I said, I'm not actually ready to work on issue 3 yet, so I am going to be opening a call for submissions later this year. That'll be a lot closer to when I'm actually starting to work on issue 3, and I'll have a much better idea of what I'm looking for in submissions. So when I'm ready, I'm going to post that call for submissions on my Substack and my Instagram. I'll probably post something on YouTube too, I guess, since I'm bothering to start this channel. But yeah, definitely follow me on Substack, Instagram, and I guess YouTube, so you don't miss it. What's the origin story of Pouch the name? Were there any other names that you considered? This is a fantastic question. I actually can't remember any name before Pouch. I actually texted 2 of my good friends, shout out Abby and Ryan, asking them whether they remembered me having a name for Pouch before Pouch, and the conclusion from both of them is no. I've always talked about Pouch to them as Pouch. So when I think about how did I come up with a name, this is my recollection of what happened. I'm pretty sure I was sitting at my desk the desk I'm sitting at right now. I think I was like, all right, I need a name for my stationery magazine. And I think I just did stationery zine, stationery paper, paper pencil, pencil pouch, pouch, pouch. Oh my God, pouch. Like, I am pretty sure I just did the word association game for like 30 seconds, starting from stationery and then a few words later landing on pouch. But the reason why I kept pouch was because I think it's a great name for a magazine. A pouch, like an actual, pouch, like the one I have on my desk, is a container for a lot of fun goodies. And I feel like that matched my own understanding and idea of what a great magazine is. And so it felt like an appropriate name for my magazine. Plus, the name is kind of cute and friendly and playful. One syllable, one word, easy to imagine on the cover of a magazine. So I hope that's not too boring of an answer. Maybe a little bit more interesting. This is not what you asked, but here are some early versions of pouch. I call them my pouch prototypes. So while the name was always pouch from the beginning, the visual language of the magazine really did change over time. Also, side note, looking at this text that I sent to Ryan, I say like I should include movie recommendations and like outing recommendations because people who love stationery often love planners and journaling, and they need things to do so they can plan and journal about it. Honestly, that is genius. I completely forgot that I said that or had that idea. So should I do that? Pouch issue 3? Anyway, comment below if you think I should try something like that for the next issue. Okay, so next question. How do you pick who has been featured in Pouch so far? So since you said who, I'm going to guess you're asking about like, how do I pick whom I'm going to interview and how do I pick whose journal layouts I'm going to include in the issue? So I actually think this is a super interesting question, especially when you're talking about the very beginnings of an indie magazine. I can imagine maybe if I'm like a very established magazine with a team, there might be like a more sophisticated process here. For better and worse, I'm just gonna be honest here. When you're getting started, you kind of end up just like asking your friends for stuff. And again, I think that's different from like, if I'm a big established magazine, I have all these resources, I have a team. In that situation, I think if you're just asking your friends for stuff, that's kind of shady. That's not great. Like, hey, you should use your platform to lift up people who are not just your friends. In my scenario, again, knowing the context of Pouch, I'm just self-funding it myself. I intended this to be a personal project. I have absolutely just asked my friends as people who I was going to interview. For Pouch issue 1, truly I was making stuff up as I went along. I didn't even originally plan to have an interview in Pouch issue 1. But what happened was I was just catching up with my friend Nikki. So that's Nikki Kaigi, dear friend of mine, a fellow stationery lover. Go definitely check out her YouTube channel and her Instagram. She's amazing. And Nikki was also a part of Pouch issue 2. She contributed 2 amazing articles, and she also helped me plan content, and she proofread some early versions of the issue. So check her out in Pouch issue 2 as well. Thank you, Nikki. Love you. Anyhow, we were just catching up on like life and journaling and stuff. And Nikki was telling me about her 5-year journal. And I was just like, oh my God, this would be a great article for Pouch. Can I interview you in Pouch? And like, we can talk about the 5-year journal. This is something I did all the time when I was making Pouch issue 1, is like, in the middle of a conversation with a friend about something totally unrelated, I'd be like, oh my God, this would be a great article for Pouch. So anyway, that's how the interview happened. And if you read Pouch issue 1, if you read the interview with Nikki, you might notice that like, Victoria, you didn't really talk about the 5-year journal. Is that really what you meant to interview Nikki about? The answer is yes. I intended to interview Nikki about her 5-year journal, but that was the first interview I have ever conducted in my life. And I was so disorganized in that interview that we actually didn't spend much time talking about her 5-year journal. Instead, I spent way too much time asking her questions just about her origin story of how she started journaling. And so that's what the article actually became, because I kind of derailed my own interview by not getting to the point that we were supposed to talk about, and instead talking about all the like front matter that I intended to be just like a little section of the article. Anyway, I still love the interview. I still love the article. I think it came out like amazing. Talking to Nikki is always so much fun, and every single thing she has to say is like super interesting. So I think it was still a great success. But yeah, this is just to give you a sense of like how not well planned, how not a well-oiled machine Pouch is right now. We're getting there. We're like making steps. So that was Pouch issue 1. After Pouch issue 1, it's not like suddenly Pouch is this like big established magazine now. I mean, even still after issue 2, not that. It's still mostly a passion project. And especially after issue 1, I think Pouch had like quite a warm reception, but not as much popularity as it's even getting now with issue 2. So for the interview for issue 2, I had a little bit more time to prepare. I kind of learned from some of my mistakes from issue 1. I was like, okay, I should go in with more of a plan for what story I want to tell through this interview. And so Carolyn is another one of my friends, and I love Carolyn's Substack. It's so good. I'll also link that below. I'll link it on the screen. And so at the time I was thinking about Pouch issue 2 content, Carolyn was posting content about how she chooses sketchbooks, and she had also posted, I think, some pages from her travel journals, and they looked so beautiful. And I had, just like as a friend and as a reader of her newsletter, I had all these questions for her about like how she travel journals, how she draws pictures. And I was like, oh my gosh, I should interview Carolyn for Pouch, and I want to ask her all these things about her travel journals, and I want to share all those answers with the Pouch audience. And so I texted Carolyn, she agreed, thank God. And actually, if you read the article in Pouch issue 2, I actually explained this in the article that we met at Public Records in Brooklyn. And this time the interview followed a bit more what I was intending to do in the interview, which was like explain Carolyn's story and also include a lot of tips and tricks from Carolyn about travel journaling. For issue 3, I actually have no idea right now how I'm going to choose whom to interview. I think one thing I'm considering is, now that Pouch has a tiny bit more popularity, I could feasibly ask people beyond my friends to interview them. Again, being completely honest here, part of my hesitance to do that is because I'm not a journalist. And like I said, my interview skills, I have 2 total interviews I've ever done. And when I subject my friends who love me to my poor interviewing skills, like I know that they're fine with it and they don't care that like I'm not doing a professional level interview. It's kind of all over the place. It kind of takes too long. Like I'm making all sorts of mistakes. Like when I do that with my friends, that's fine. If I'm taking up the time of someone who is not my personal friend for content in my magazine that I later sell without having the means to give them compensation, that makes me a little like, I don't feel great about that. Again, I think a lot about these things because, yeah, on one hand, I don't want to just interview my friends. On the other hand, again, all those hand wringing. So anyway, TBD. I don't know what I'm doing for issue 3 yet, but I will be considering the tensions at play here, how to make sure that the magazine is interesting and fun to read, how to make sure I'm being respectful of my interviewees' time, especially if I don't have the resources yet to properly compensate them. And at the same time, even if it's a humble platform, Pouch Magazine is still a platform, and I want to make sure that I'm representing a diverse set of voices and not just always choosing my friends, right? So yeah, so that's the interview side of things. Journal layout side of things, each magazine has been different. So Pouch issue 1, I posted a call for submissions. At the time, No one knew who I was. No one knew what Pouch was. Pouch did not exist. I showed you this document from August. It literally, this like crude sketch was all that existed of Pouch. So even though I did a call for submissions, I only had like 30 followers on Instagram, and I ended up only getting 2 submissions. Shout out to JM and Stephanie. You are both my heroes. You are the first 2 people to submit to Pouch. But yeah, so I wanted more journal layouts than 2 for the first issue. And so I ended up DMing people on Instagram asking if I could include their journals in Pouch or asking them to submit journal layouts to Pouch. Again, I did not have a presence in the stationery community at the time. People didn't know who I was. And so most people I DM'd did not reply to my message. And just to be clear, like if that was you, do not worry. Like I completely understand, and I don't want you to like feel bad or anything like that. In fact, I want you to contribute to Pouch. So like if I DM'd you, it is because I want you to contribute to Pouch. So please don't hide from me because you didn't reply to my DM when you didn't know who I was because of good reasons. Instead, please take the opposite and be like, oh, I should really contribute to Pouch in the future. Anyway, sidebar aside, so the journal layout gallery in Pouch issue 1 is just composed of the 2 people who submitted to Pouch, and then the only people who gave me permission to use their journal layouts in Pouch. So again, shout out to every single person who contributed to the journal layout gallery for issue 1. You are my heroes. Thank you. But yeah, that was my process. For Pouch issue 2, with Pouch issue 1, I had gotten a little bit more popularity. Like people sort of knew who I was. And so I was expecting I would get more submissions for issue 2 than issue 1. But I wasn't expecting like much more. Maybe 5 submissions rather than 2. So I put up a call for submissions again, and I didn't have like all of this criteria or anything like that because I was like, I could, but I didn't need any of it for issue 1. Why bother for issue 2 when I'm probably just going to get, if I'm lucky, like 5 submissions? So then, to my surprise, I actually got a little over 20 submissions for Pouch issue 2. I actually wrote about this in my Substack newsletter. I will post a link to that also below. But this was like both a blessing and a crisis. I was, again, so excited to get 20 plus submissions to Pouch issue 2. But I was also freaking out because I was only planning to publish like 10 journal layouts. I did not think through how I would choose 10 journal layouts out of like 20 submissions. So I made the executive decision to not choose. I decided to just include every single journal layout submission in Pouch issue 2. Again, if you want to hear about that process, all my internal angst about this and the pros and cons of doing it, you can read all that in my Substack. But yeah, so that is how I chose journal layouts. Issue 3, I have not decided how I'm going to do this yet. I plan to be more prepared for issue 3 because yeah, like actually I realize like for issue 3, if I get only a few submissions, that's actually pretty easy to deal with because I feel pretty confident I can like ask people for permission to include their journal in Pouch, especially now that Pouch is a little more established. What I'm more worried about is like, what if I get even more submissions than 20 for issue 3? How am I going to choose who makes it in the print magazine and who doesn't? And this is one of the things that I love about print, but is also challenging about print, is that you're limited on space. It's not like a digital surface in which like you can just keep adding content and it feels unlimited. I actually think this is a strength of paper. Like you're forced to choose, you're forced to limit your attention, you're forced to have a more intimate relationship with the material that you're looking at because you're working in the physical space Anyway, I think this is all a beautiful aspect about paper, but it does mean like, oh no, I'm gonna have to choose. I'm gonna have to figure out a way to choose who gets to go in the magazine, and I want to do that in a way that people all feel good about, including myself. So yeah, TBD, I'm gonna do some thinking on that before issue 3. But yeah, that is my messy process so far. Work in progress. I think as the magazine evolves, my process on this will change, and if you're curious, I will keep keeping you updated on how that looks. Okay, hey y'all, hey team. This is Editing Victoria. So I actually recorded a lot more footage of me answering Q&A questions, and those questions were more like about my stationery habits, like what was my first journal, where do I get my stationery, things like that. So I still want to share that with you, but Editing Victoria is saying that this video is almost an hour long already. So, new plan. This video is going to just stay focused on questions about Pouch Magazine, about Pouch Studio, and my creative process. And I will upload a second video at some later date that goes through the remainder of the Q&A questions that were more on fun topics like what journals am I using and my journaling routine. Okay, so stay tuned for that, and now I'm going to wrap things up. All right, that is the end of my Q&A, y'all. If you stuck with me for the whole video, thank you so much. I hope this was somewhat interesting at least. Yeah, to be totally honest, video is not my most comfortable medium to create with. I love watching videos. Like I am a huge fan of YouTube, but I am more comfortable with paper. I am more comfortable with writing than I am with speaking in front of a video. It's also why, for example, I have a Substack newsletter, but I do not have a TikTok account, for instance. I like writing. That is my comfort zone. But I wanted to get out of my comfort zone a little bit and try to record a video because I think for things like a Q&A, or I think when I just have like a lot of nuance to try to express that I haven't quite found the perfect words and phrases for, I feel like a video sometimes, you know, with the addition of like tone and facial expression and gesticulation, I feel like that can help express a concept even before I have the perfect words for it. So that's why I wanted to try recording this video. So I wouldn't go so far as to say like I'm starting a YouTube channel yet per se. Like the way I want to approach this YouTube channel is just when I have something to say or something to explain that I think would fit better as a video format rather than in written format. That's what I want to use this channel for. I'm not planning to have like a regular upload schedule or anything like that, but examples of things that I want to post on the channel are like, I've gotten actually a lot of questions about things like printers. How do you print photos from Journal Helper and get them to look nice? How do you print photos from Journal Helper on mini printers? Things like that, questions like that. So to me, those feel like great topics to discuss over video rather than by written tutorial. So that's the sort of content I'm expecting to post here. So either like rambly longer form videos like this where I'm talking about like Pouch Studio, maybe life updates, things like that. And then video tutorials or other type of content where I feel like video just is a better fit than my newsletter or my Instagram. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, feel free to like this video and subscribe to my channel. And before I sign off, just one last time, I wanted to give the biggest, most heartfelt thank you to everyone who has supported me and my journey with Pouch, everyone who is a fan of Pouch, all of the words and messages and kind things you've shared, either to me personally or, on social media. It really means the world to me. Thank you so much for connecting with me in that way. This career sabbatical I've been on has truly been life-changing, and I really have the stationery community to thank for so much of that. And the, stationery community, also shout out to the art community. So many artists have been so welcoming, so encouraging on my, drawing and design journey as well. And I just, thank you. Working with you all and working in this space has really been the greatest privilege in my career. And I'm just hoping I can figure out a way to continue working in this space and continue to produce Pouch Magazine. And then again, hopefully get the softer thing started too. And I hope I can be able to produce really fun, cute, useful tools for paper lovers as well. All right, that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. Bye.